Hey everyone, Dan here. We are during the trading day on Tuesday, July 13th. I wanted to share a trade idea for Cleveland Cliffs. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also, if you would like to receive more trade ideas once or twice per week starting in August, put your email on my email list, which is linked in the description below. Right now it's just a Google form, but I'm launching it in August, so that's when it'll first start to come out. So I'll send you a little note before that starts if you do sign up and just say, hey, here's what it is, here's when it's going to start, and if you want to opt out because you're no longer interested, here's how you can do it. So kind of low to no risk if that might be interesting to you. All right, so Cleveland Cliffs, I've done videos on Cleveland Cliffs in the past, so this is why we already have a chart here. As you see today, we're down a little bit. Still decent volume coming in on this one. We might make this average by close, but it's going to need sort of like a big power hour probably. But that could certainly happen, but relatively flat on the day so far, which is fine because it is still in this channel, which is from the previous video. So what I'm going to do is I want to actually redraw this channel because I do think there's value in playing the channel, but I'm going to get rid of all these blue lines, which are all of the supply and demand zones. And for my liking, it's just too much, to be honest. So I'm going to try to simplify some things and take a fresh look. So I think there's a couple of things at play before I redraw the channel. What I'd like to do, if you look back here, this is on the daily time frame, by the way, but you have this like drop off here that happened. This was during the pandemic sell-off. As you see, this ended in mid to late March of 2020 and started, here in February. So that should ring a bell for everyone. And then it clawed back, as most things did. But I mean, at the lows there, it was just $2.63. But what I want to focus on is, after it had that run up and some consolidation, and then what I want to focus on is the sell-off after this run-up. So there's this run-up here, which I believe when we redraw the channel, that was the area in which it popped itself out of the channel briefly, and then it came back in. But what I want to look at is the low, the first low after that, which is this one here. So if we zoom in, we should get a price target on it. Okay, there we go. 1277 that we hit on March 5th, 2021, versus the high on June 10th, so just a little over 3 months later. So in 3 months, it went from 1277 to 2477, so almost doubled in price. And what I wanted to get is a fib retracement on that. I haven't looked at this yet, so I don't know what it's going to yield, but let's take a look and see if we're at sort of like any key or interesting levels that the retracement gives us that we can then sort of like combine with areas in the channel in order to give us sort of like a good look at potential buy zones and how that interplays with the channel play as sort of like the trade idea. So if we look here, it's done a pretty good job consolidating, pulling back into several of these zones. Right now, after it's peaked out, it's coming back down to this 382 level, and then tested that twice essentially, and now is pushed off up and over the 23.6. So this is where we may see that this is sort of like in its new launch phase, especially if you take a look at the trend line here. This actually stretches back a little bit, maybe not quite to there, but maybe to here. So I was first looking at this upper trend line where things seem to be kind of peaking out or topping out along this line. I was first looking at, higher high, higher high, higher high, but then I see it even stretches back here to this sort of like little peak out and then sell off. But if you see here, all of these peaks that it's reaching up to are doing a pretty good job of holding this trend line. I think we could even move it down a little bit there and sort of lop the head off of these top wicks. This one gets tossed in there. So it's hitting there again right now. So we'll see if it does want to pull back a little bit and sort of keep following this trend line up, or if this is sort of like the launch points at which it's going to make a really strong run up over this 24.77, and then we could get some sort of extension zones above that to sort of see what we would look for to the upside after this. But right now, that's what I would be looking to play is either addressing it up this trend line or looking for a pullback down. I don't know that it would come all the way down to retest this 236. We get ourselves like it's following really well still this bottom trend line, which I'm kind of drawing in like a hacky channel here as well in a way, but this bottom trend line is holding really well too. So, and that's about to be approaching this 236 zone. So coming back down into this, would give a couple of areas of potential bounce off of there, and give us strength up to that 2477 price target to do a full retracement to the upside, I guess an unretracement. The other thing I wanted to look at for additional potential support would be on the MA. So right now we're in a fully bullish pattern. I mean, you have the 200 is all the way down here at about 15.5. So definitely a lot of opportunity here. We had that bullish cross that happened just at the end of March, and with this big gap up here. And so it's been doing a good job both filling these gaps I'm noticing now, which doesn't look like we have any additional ones left to fill, but that 20 that's sitting right now at 2163 will soon likely rise to that to this 2194 level, and would give it additional support there again. So I think you're going to have various levels of support at that 236 zone. What I would like to see on the sort of like continuing to buy into price strength for Cleveland Cliffs would be if it does hold that 236. Now, if it doesn't, I look for it to get caught by the 50 MA, which it's done a really good job catching it all along here, especially since the crossover. And that would be very, very close to then this upward trend line here on the bottom side to offer an additional area for it to catch. What I'd look for maybe to the downside would be, if I bought in at this 236 level on a dip and it couldn't hold it, I guess I would sort of play it one of two ways. I would either look at the ATR and say, okay, we're at $1.10 on the ATR, so I'm going to set my stop loss $1.10 below $21.94, or I would be happy to kind of like average down into the 382 zone, which is $20.19, and look for it to bounce there, but set like a very tight stop loss underneath that in case it can't hold it. But those are the areas that I would look for. In the meantime, since I drew in this sort of like more near-term channel, I won't worry about drawing out the other channel, because if it's going to test the upper bound of that larger channel that we had at the beginning of the video, it's going to pop itself over this 2477 anyway. So that gives us sort of like a good indication at that point that we would draw some extension zones, not worry so much about the retracements anymore, and at that point we could repopulate that larger channel and say, okay, we're at the top of the channel, so here's where we might pull back into, and then here's where we would look for it to bounce to the upside. So that's the trade idea that I have. Again, in case it wasn't clear, look for this to establish up over this upper trend line if it's really going to take off, and press, that 2477. I would watch what it does there so that it doesn't double top out and then sell off quite heavily, which could happen, but I would just pay attention to what it does there. And or dip buy as it comes down into this 23.6 level, look for support there, which should relatively track with the 50 MA at that point, and or this trend line, and look for additional support zones there if it's needed. Setting a stop loss 1 ATR level below $21.94, or if you want to give it some more room to breathe and let it average down or dip by down into $20.19 if it comes down that far, that for me would be the riskiest that I would take it. But of course, with any of these trade ideas, do your own due diligence, do your own homework, come up with your own trading plan. To the degree to which that these ideas are helpful in any way, that's why I put the video out, just to share ideas. Okay, so I think that'll do it for this one. Good luck if you're in Cleveland Cliffs. I definitely appreciate you watching the video, and if you found it interesting, if you thought it was a good idea and you'd like to sort of spread the word about CLF, feel free to share this video on Reddit or Twitter or Facebook or anywhere that you talk or consume stock info. I would be really down to have you share the vids. Okay, thanks a bunch for watching. Have a nice rest of your trading day, and I will see you in the next video.